All right, I want to invite you to take your hymn books and turn to number 5. And we want to start our corporate time of worship and fellowship today on this Lord's Day with this aspiration of our hearts. And I trust it is the desire of your heart, and where the heart needs to be adjusted, that this will help us. When morning gilds the skies, my heart awakening cries, may Jesus Christ be praised. And that's appropriate for every day that we live with that mindset, but especially on this Lord's Day, may that really be the cry of our hearts, that Christ himself is praised through our worship together. Let's stand, and we're going to sing number 5. In heaven's eternal bliss, the loveliest strain is this: may Jesus Christ be praised. He will continue to be for all eternity the joy of all of heaven and of God's people. And may the Lord give us even just a little foretaste of that today. Well, our piano's going to play while you greet one another. Couple verses, so get right to it, and then we'll reconvene. All right, once you find your place, you're welcome to be seated. So glad that each of you are here. And we are glad to have the Minnick family with us that are preparing to serve in the Philippines. And so the rest of this hour is theirs to introduce to us themselves and God's work in their life, their family, and the place of the Lord's leading. So, brother, I'll just turn it over to you and let you do the rest of telling us about yourself.
Okay. Well, thank you for having us today. It's a joy to be here, and thank you, Pastor, for the kind invitation. And I feel like I should apologize for my voice ahead of time. I got sick about a week and a half ago, so I'm well over it. I don't think I'm contagious anymore, but when I was in high school, I worked at a resort, and they sent me out to spray Roundup all over the walls of the marina with this huge spray gun. And so I was, I'm 18, I don't know anything, I'm spraying all over, and it's blowing back in my face, and I'm breathing it in. I developed this really bad cough, and ever since then, anytime I get sick, for weeks afterwards, I sound like this, and I'm, got a bit of a cough left over, but hopefully I'm not contagious, and but if you can bear with me. My voice is doing things it hasn't done since junior high, so you can put up with me, and we'll have a good Sunday, but thank you for having us. I've often said, I think, that the chief duty of the Sunday school teacher is not to present new truth. It's not even to illustrate truth so that it's clear. It's not to apply truth so that it is applicable to our lives. Actually, the chief duty of the Sunday school teacher is to keep everyone awake, and then everything flows from there, because if you're not awake, it doesn't count. But hopefully we can keep you all awake this morning. I thought I'll introduce our family here. They're actually in the back, very strategically, in case my wife needs to duck out with the baby. But do you guys want to stand up? And so this is Seth here on the screen. Seth, can you wave? He's 9 years old. And he's the intellectual of the family. He likes to read and crack codes and stuff. He's decided he wants to be a cryptologist when he grows up. Micaiah is 7. That's him there, and he's kind of on the other end of the spectrum. He likes to climb up everything in sight and fall off and break his collarbone, that kind of thing. This is Levi. Can you wave, Levi? He's kind of hard to see back there, but he is 4, newly turned 4 a couple weeks ago, and he's a special blessing in our family. Allie's the only girl, so she's Daddy's princess. She is 2. Can you wave, Allie? There you go. And then Marcus is 4 months, so he was born back in June, and we're very, very thankful for him. And then my wife, Megan, she can wave back there. She's the better part of getting to know us by far. So, but thank you. And the reindeer is Wee Wee. Wee Wee is Allie's special friend. So that she's part of the family as well. We left her behind on deputation at a place, and we had to go back and get her. It was that important. So that's good. Thank you, guys. You can sit down there. Yeah, but we wanted to share just a little bit about the Lord's leading in our lives. We believe that he's leading us to Manila in the Philippines to serve at Bob Jones Memorial Bible College. If you're looking at that picture there and you say, that doesn't look like the Philippines, then you are correct. That is not the Philippines. That is Alberta, Canada. What I thought I would do is just share initially a little bit about what we did this past semester. And it's just a bit of a taste of the type of ministry that we feel that the Lord has led us to. Being involved in a Bible college and training men for ministry and women as well for serving in the church. So this is in Edmonton, Alberta. We were there in the spring 2023 semester. Got there in January and then left in May. So most of the ministry that we had there was at Foundation Baptist College, small Bible college there in Edmonton, connected with a couple of the churches there. I don't know if you know the man on the left in the red shirt, Bud Talbert. He's the one who started the Bible college back in 2009. And his brother is Leighton Talbert, who teaches here at BJU Seminary. On the right is Joel Arnold. Some of you might know the Arnolds. I think, doesn't Sam Arnold have some connection with the school here? So this is his brother, and he's now the new president of the college there. And leading that, taking it forward, is a blessing to get to serve alongside those men. That just kind of puts it a little bit in perspective. I thought what I would do is just share a couple of stories of some of the students that were there. This man, his name is Logan, sat across the table from him there in the coffee shop, and he shared with me kind of his life story. Just really an amazing story of what the Lord's done. His dad was into hockey, which is huge up there, so he's out till 2 a.m. every night drinking in the bars and playing hockey and that kind of thing. So this man grew up with a very profligate lifestyle, into drugs and that kind of thing. When he was in his mid-teens, he got very interested in conspiracy theories, figuring out what's really going on in the world. Canadians are right into that kind of thing. And so he got a hold of a Bible as part of that search, and he started reading. And he had some interaction with people online, but by and large, just reading the Bible convinced him that this is the truth. And he turned to Christ as a result of that. So he got connected with the church that Pastor Bud Talbert was pastoring there, and then he started taking classes in the college, felt like the Lord was leading him to ministry, and now he's pastoring with Pastor Bud there at the church. Here he is teaching the kids. Before each service, they have all the kids come down and sit on the front row, and the pastor takes about 5 minutes. He kind of preaches the message on the kids' level to them. Then they all go sit back with their parents, and then he preaches the full message to everyone. So that's what he's doing there. You can see here he is teaching a new members class. So now here's new believers, and he's trying to help them understand the Bible and the doctrines of the faith and bringing them up in the Lord, baptizing a new believer there. This to me is the most exciting picture. He's in the back row in the green shirt, and he's taking part in an ordination council to now place another man into the ministry. And I look at that and I think, how did that happen? How did he go from being, knowing almost nothing about the scriptures to actually not only pastoring, but having a part in another man going into the ministry? In fact, Dr. Joel Arnold, about 8 or 9 years ago, went up to Edmonton and taught a class in the college. And this man, it was his first class. And he said, I just remember this tall guy in the back who kept asking all these questions about conspiracy theories. The class was on the book of Daniel, and he wanted to figure out what's really going on in the world and how this applies. And, he knew almost nothing. And how did he go from that to pastoring God's people and having a part in other men going into the ministry? And by and large, the answer to that question is Bud Talbert, very faithfully serving the Lord in the college and just pouring into his life. And in fact, when I first heard Pastor Logan pray, I thought he prays like Pastor Bud. They sound alike. And that's just a small sample of the kind of influence that he's had on this man who's now serving the Lord in the ministry there. This is another brother there at the college. His name's Merjet. He's Haitian in his background, but grown up in Canada, very Canadian and culturally. And we had a lot of good opportunity to fellowship and speak together. Actually, his wife was my student about 5 years ago at the university, Bob Jones here in town. So now then he's my student, like all these years later, at another college up in Canada, just the way the Lord works, things like that. But he feels compelled to go into the ministry. He was in engineering and really fought the call, didn't want anything to do with it, wanted to be an engineer, a scientist. And over a period of years, he just couldn't get away from this compulsion to shepherd God's people and to preach. And so he surrendered to that. Now he's training there at the school. But he's a deacon there at the church as well. But he took a couple classes from me there. One of the classes was on the book of Hebrews. And I spent a lot of time in that class trying to help the men understand soteriology, the theology that we believe of our salvation, and then how the book of Hebrews fits into that and how it helps us understand what's going on in the book there, particularly with regard to the future and resurrection and things like that. And so what I had them do was prepare a sermon and then preach it to the class. And so that's what he's doing there. He's kind of having a go, preaching it and perfecting that skill. And so then a couple weeks ago, he was asked to preach at a local area church there in Greenville. So he wanted to talk about his sermon. He wanted to use the sermon from Hebrews, wanted to talk about it. So we called on Zoom, and we're kind of talking about the passage and what's going on there. And I could tell as we were talking that he wasn't quite understanding what was happening in that passage. And so I pointed him back to the class that we'd had and the theology that we'd talked about there that helps inform our understanding of that book. And all of a sudden over Zoom, you could see the lights go on. And he got this big smile on his face. And he said, oh, wow, now I can see what God is saying in that passage. And then he went and preached the sermon, and he sent the link to me, and I listened to it, and the Lord spoke to my heart about things I needed to change in my life as a result of that sermon. And I just thought it doesn't get much better than that. helping men to understand God's word and then to stand up and preach it to others, to shepherd God's people. It's really rewarding and enjoying, and hopefully there'll be a kind of a trickle-down effect in these men's ministries for years to come. Not that we're anything special. I feel like all semester I was just passing along to these men what others had given to me, and it was a blessing to do that. But I wanted to share that just as a bit of a sample of the type of ministry that we feel that the Lord is leading us to. This is him. They're receiving a certificate, but pouring into the lives of men and women who will, Lord willing, lead the church in the next generation, particularly pastors. So we believe that the Lord's leading us to do that next in the Philippines at Bob Jones Memorial Bible College. I feel like you all are very familiar with that, having the Berries here in the church. In fact, some of you could probably give the presentation better than I could. But we believe that the Lord's leading us in that direction. You might ask, well, how on earth did you end up feeling like the Lord was leading in that way? So I felt like what I'd do to share a little bit of the story of that. I grew up in Queensland, in Cardwell, Queensland, Australia, as a missionary kid. So is my dad there preaching. I'm the little guy in the red tie and the white shirt there on the front row, way back many years ago. But I grew up there as a missionary kid. It was a smaller church, and so in high school I got a lot of opportunities to preach and teach, and there wasn't a whole lot that my dad did in the pastorate that I didn't end up having a part in and doing, and just loved that. So throughout high school, that burden for the ministry just was growing. And when I was 16, I was at camp and someone was preaching, just challenging men and saying, there's some of you out there and the Lord's been leading you into the ministry. This is what the Lord has for you. And all you need to do is just put your hand up and say, okay. It's kind of to that point. And I said, okay, I think that's where I'm at. So I prayed that night and committed to follow that leading there with my life. So I came over to Bob Jones when I was 19 in 2007 as a freshman, and really appreciate what the Lord did there in my life through that. I got involved in a group of students called Mission Prayer Band. This is, some of us, we'd gone out on a picnic, but basically it's just a group of students that would get together and pray for missions and talk about missions, have missionaries in to speak and things like that. I think now it's called Missions Advance or something like that. But through that time there, in that group, I really started developing a burden for more primitive missions, especially people who had never heard the gospel. And that was a burden that was growing on my heart. And so my junior year, there was a mission team coming up that summer to Southeast Asia, and some people had said, hey, you should think about going on that mission team. So I called my dad and I said, hey, what do you think? Should I end up, I've got this burden growing, and I feel like I want to go on this mission team. And I really expected him to say, no, Andrew, we need you back here in Australia, like he'd said all along. But he kind of surprised me, and he said, no, Andrew, I think you need to go on that team. I think that's the next step for you in following the Lord. So I went on that mission team with Kevin Oberlin and 4 other guys, and lived out of a backpack for 6 weeks there and had a blast all over Southeast Asia. Lots of fun, really, but lots of good ministry. We went to Singapore, down in the south, and then up to Myanmar, formerly Burma, down to the south of Myanmar where Ann Judson is buried there, through Thailand, spent some time in Cambodia, and in Vietnam, went over to Manila in the Philippines, down to the south of the Philippines to Mindanao, the Muslim island there, and then up to, let's see if it'll advance, up to Japan, and then let's see, back to the U.S. So as I was traveling through Southeast Asia, I had a lot of really great opportunities to preach, to teach, just to be involved in churches and ministries and several schools there, but saw a lot of just really sad things as well. This is the Shwedagon Pagoda in Myanmar, and you walk in, it's just a huge complex, and people all over the place worshiping false deities and idols. This is a Buddhist monk. There's about 500,000 monks in the country. Just Buddhism dominates the lifestyle there, so even from a young age, the children are raised in that. That's all they know. I put in a little movie clip here. This is, I think, in maybe a Hindu temple or a Sikh. But you can see the one lady on the right, she's brought a gift of bananas for the god. And so she's ringing the bell to get the god's attention, to let the god know that she's brought this gift. Otherwise, the god wouldn't know. But she doesn't realize that she's gotten in the way of the worship of the lady on the left. And so the lady on the left gets upset with her. Get out of my way. You're trying to worship my god. You know, and it's in some senses a little bit funny to watch, but it's just sad. You know, that people would actually believe that there's something in that statue or what it represents that would present some way to be right with God. And you walk around and you look at this, and it's just heartbreaking. There's another clip here of them worshiping by bathing their God and who they worship there. And you walk around and you look at this. All over the place, there's these little statues or little shrines set up, and the incense candles are constantly burning, and they think that they have light, and really they're dwelling in darkness. And the devil has blinded their eyes, lest they should see the glory of God in the face of Christ. You know, Paul tells us that they worship demons, that there's demons behind those idols. And the devil really has them captive. And they grow old, worshiping in that way, and they die, and they realize instantly that they were lied to their entire life by the devil. And I just walked around, and I looked at these people, and I just thought, who's going to tell them about Christ? You know, this little boy there at Angkor Wat, who's going to tell him about Christ, that Christ loved him enough to die for him? You know, he'll probably grow and never hear that story. And part of the answer to that question of who's going to reach those people is everywhere we went, all over Southeast Asia, we saw Filipino missionaries in all of these other countries reaching them for Christ. Somebody said the Philippines' best export is people, and it's true. They fit in really well in other cultures. They don't have the stigma that goes with certain ethnicities sometimes. They do well with hardship. They're very personable, likable, and so they make excellent missionaries, and they're everywhere all over Southeast Asia reaching the rest of that area for Christ. These are some of the men there working in Mindanao in the south of the Philippines, largely a Muslim area. And so when we were traveling, we ended the trip in Manila at Bob Jones Memorial Bible College, and I saw there a school training people to go out and do this, what I'd seen all over Southeast Asia. And so I remember they're preaching in their chapel and just preaching the Great Commission to them and just saying, you know, praise the Lord for what you're doing, and God's going to be with you as you go out. It was just exciting to see that happening. The school's located in Metro Manila, so just millions and millions of people, very crowded area. But they have about 150 students each semester, and they're just faithfully training them to go out and to serve the Lord really all over the Philippines and throughout the rest of Southeast Asia as well. I think the way that mission trip really shaped my thinking the most, however, was, you know, as I'm walking around looking at all of this need in all these countries, I'm asking myself, so what can we do about it? You know, how can we reach these countries? Technology's changed the world in many ways. You know, the world is shrinking and globalizing, and you know, missions maybe looks a little different sometimes than it did hundreds of years ago. You know, how can we reach these people? What do we have to offer them? You know, just to put it in secular terms, what do we have to export to these countries? How can we support what Christ is doing there in his church? And a lot of times throughout those countries, there's a lot of really exciting, rapid growth going on. This is a church there in Mindanao that's been established. And we saw people all over the place, people being saved and churches being established. And it's exciting what the Lord's doing there. But a lot of times that kind of rapid growth in the global south can be kind of a mile wide and an inch deep. And so I came back to the U.S. after that mission trip very solidly convinced of the need for theological education, to train people in how to interact with their Bible and how to understand it, and theology. And we have a real heritage of that here in the U.S. Many, many years of people being taught and books being written and studying being done and journal articles and all of this kind of thing. And there's a real wealth there that we can, this is a way that we can serve what the Lord is doing in those countries. And it's really a very necessary step in mission strategy. You know, you start with evangelization and church planting, but you get to a point pretty rapidly where they can do it better than we can when it comes to winning people and even pastoring people. But what we can do is come in and help those men with their training and understanding the scriptures and their interaction with it. And then they know the culture well, and they can do sometimes a far better job than we can at leading people to the Lord and forming them up into churches and pastoring them and shepherding them. So I saw that happening there at Bob Jones Memorial Bible College. I saw all these men and even ladies serving, training to serve there in the church, and then going out and reaching really that whole area for Christ. And it was just exciting. It was really wonderful. They have about 340, they have about 150 students each semester, about 340 degree graduates over the years. And you think about, I'll go back there, if you think about 340 people trained in understanding the scriptures and then sent out, you think about all of the good that's been done for Christ's kingdom over the years. It's just remarkable what the Lord's done through that ministry and through that school. So I came back to the U.S. With all this kind of going on in my mind, and I sort of had this thought, like maybe I'll go back to that school one day. Just kind of a thought in the back of my mind. But finished my PhD there at the seminary, and I had a lot of good opportunity while I was doing that to teach, and teaching Greek and things, and I just loved it. I just loved teaching and pouring into men. A lot of what I did as well was recruiting, which means sitting down with seniors and trying to talk to them about their seminary choice and just getting involved in the lives of guys going into the ministry, and just kind of like discipleship on steroids kind of a thing, talking to them about their life and their trajectory and choices they were making, and I just loved that. It was just a lot of fun. During my years there, I also met a really amazing girl. Met her there in the back. Shake her hand afterwards and chat a little bit. She's worth getting to know. Definitely the better part of our marriage by far. Her parents pastor very faithfully out in South Dakota. So she grew up there in South Dakota on the prairies. It's flat there. It's so flat in their town that there's one river that flows through the city, and it literally flows either north or south on any given day, depending on which way the wind's blowing. That's how flat it is. It's like a swamp kind of a thing. They call it the Mog. But she grew up there, parents just very faithfully pastoring and serving the Lord, and the Lord led us together to be married in 2011. So we finished the degree there, and she finished a master's as well, and went and talked to the mission and said, we kind of have this burden for training men for ministry in schools, and here's what we've seen, what we're thinking, what do you think, where could the Lord use us? So they presented a couple different options. One was BJMBC in the Philippines, the other was Foundation Baptist College in Edmonton. So we sort of felt like the Lord was leading us in the Edmonton direction, at least initially, to go check that out. But actually last summer, before we went up there, I was sitting in a service at Mount Calvary, and Tim Berry was speaking and just sharing kind of some of their testimony, how the Lord's led in their lives. And as he was preaching, I'm just thinking like, wow, here's these two options. And, so I actually prayed that night, and I said, Lord, I think you're leading us towards Foundation, at least initially, to kind of go up there for a semester, but I want you to know I'm willing to go to BJMBC in the Philippines if that's what you'd have. And lo and behold, the Lord ended up actually leading in that direction. So I talked to Dr. Kamabayashiyama, who directs the school there, and he shared, as you know, the real need there, that the Lord led the Arnolds up to Edmonton, to the college there. He led Tim Berry back here to the home office. He led Doug Backrick away. Actually, just a couple of weeks ago, one of the national men there who pastors, who teaches in the school, was taken home to be with the Lord unexpectedly. And so they just have real need. In fact, Dr. Kamabayashiyama, who started having real trouble with his voice a little while back, a couple months ago, so he went in to see the doctor, and the doctor said, you're just using it too much. Too much preaching and teaching. He's just really overworked there. And he shared with me the need, not just for someone who can teach, but someone who can also help with the administration there at the school. A lot of these men helped with that, and that's kind of what I did for the last 6 years at the seminary here. So we feel like, we're excited about joining in the ministry there and having a part in that. I thought my wife actually could come and just share a little testimony so you can kind of get to know her a little bit as well. Every good presentation needs a commercial break, so she can come and share a little testimony, and then I'll just share a little bit about the history of the school and finish up here this morning. But I don't know if Allie needs to come up with you, that's okay. I can can hold here. There she comes.
Thank you so much for having us. I should probably apologize for my voice too, because we got the same bug. So I just wanted to share a few minutes about what the Lord has been teaching me, particularly the last several months as our family's been going through a lot of changes, being in Greenville, being in Canada, coming back. Marcus was born a week and a half after we drove back from Canada. And so we were very thankful the Lord got us back before that happened. And then going to the Philippines, just a lot of changes and a lot of transition the last several months. And as we were nearing the end of our time in Canada, I thought about the line from the song that says, "In every change, he faithful will remain." And I thought, well, that's a really nice line to rattle off when your life is kind of doing the whirlwind thing. But at that point, it wasn't really much more than that. It was just a nice line to rattle off. And, excuse me, after we got home, I thought about that line again, but I thought about it a little more deeply. And I thought, well, in every change, he is faithful to love us, to keep loving us. And the list could go on and on. In every change, he's faithful to provide for us, to do all these things they're really precious things, and you don't want to diminish them. But I thought, is there any way in which, I just thought, that's all about me. He loves me, he provides for me, which, like I said, it is wonderful, but is there any way in which, in every change, he faithful will remain to himself, so that I'm not just always thinking about me? And what the Lord brought to mind was that in every change, he is faithful to continually be worth it, that he's worth all the unpacking and repacking and laundry and repacking and unpacking again and again, and all the travel and all of the different things that come in all those transitions, that when I stop and think about it and I trace it down, it's really about him. When I hit a spot that's a little bit difficult circumstantially, but I trace it down, it ends up being, well, we're doing this, for instance, I'm up in the middle of the night at the Wilds with the baby so that he doesn't wake up half of the lodge. Why am I up half the night, or not half the night, but in the middle of the night with the baby? Well, it's because we're at the GFA conference. Why are we at the GFA conference? To go to the Philippines. Why are we going to the Philippines? Well, it's supposed to be to serve the Lord. It's not really about me. At least it's not supposed to be at the end of the day. It's not supposed to be about what do I enjoy, what's easy for me, what's comfortable for me, what's this or that about me. It's about the Lord, that this is his work and this is what he's called us to do. And so actually that particular night at the Wilds was a really sweet time to be up with the baby at 4 a.m, just thinking through and the Lord teaching me those things. While we were at that conference at the Wilds, one of the GFA directors was giving a session about following the Lord. And he listed off just circumstance after circumstance, but he followed every one with Christ saying, "Follow me." So when your health breaks down, follow me. When you're in a new culture, follow me. When you're learning the language, follow me. And I don't remember all the specifics, but he just listed thing after thing after thing, and it was all about follow me. And so that's just been a precious thing that the Lord has been teaching me, that it's really not about me, it's about him. And if Christ was willing to leave heaven to come and rescue me from the darkness of sin, then what is it for me to be up in the night with my baby? Or what is it for me to go halfway around the world? It's really not that much in comparison to what he's done. So just remembering in my mindset to keep it about him and not about me has been really helpful and really a precious thing that I'm thankful he's teaching me, and that hopefully I'll continue to learn as we go.
Well, I should have mentioned at the beginning just a little bit about what we're planning. We're thinking basically we'll go over to Manila January 30th. We fly out, so that's about 4.5 weeks away. It's coming up quickly. We'll be there for about 6 months until the middle of May, kind of just a short-term initial trip to get some help there more immediately and give us a chance to look at the school and fit in there. And then if we feel like the Lord would lead us back there long term, then we would go on the road and raise more of the traditional monthly ongoing support and end up back there long term. I would say we're fairly certain that's what the Lord would have for us. I guess he could redirect us some other way, but I think, I would feel like that's what we would have for us long term. So that's kind of what our outlook looks like. I thought I'd share just a little bit about the history of the school. Back in 1975, there was a student at Bob Jones who was very burdened for the Philippines and gave a challenge there to the mission prayer band and just was really exhorting the other students to think about the Philippines, and pray for them. And out of that challenge, 9 students decided that they would form a mission team, and that summer they would go to the Philippines, and they did. And of those 9 students, 5 of them ended up going back long-term to the Philippines as career missionaries. One of those students, I won't mention his name because he's in a restricted access country now, you might recognize him, but his burden was to start a school. He had seen in Acts 19 how Paul set up kind of a teaching ministry there in the school of Tyrannus, and it says, as a result, all Asia heard the gospel. So it seems like Paul was imparting to other people things that they went out and then taught to others, and he was equipping them to go out and reach Asia. And the Lord did amazing things. And so this man decided 2,000 years later he was going to do the same thing. So he decided to start a school there. And so in 1985, they began in this garage with their first classes. This is the first class there. Had 2 teachers, I think about 17 students. And over the years, the Lord's done really great things. This is the first graduating class. You just look into the faces of those people, and you think about all of those graduating classes since then, scattered all over Southeast Asia, and what the Lord has done through them. And it's just amazing. It's remarkable what the Lord's done through that ministry. By the 1990s, they had grown and had like 80 students, and they started a seminary program on the graduate level as well. In 2002, the Lord led Doug Backrick there to begin a music program, and they just have a wonderful philosophy of very, very conservative music that honors the Lord. Just very thankful for that. And in 2007, they had a burden for men who couldn't come to Manila, men in the ministry who couldn't just uproot. They got their families, their churches, and everything. They can't just go to Manila for 4 years for training, and maybe haven't had a whole lot of training themselves. And so they started this continuing education program where they go out to the islands and they'll have a 1-week modular class. And these men can take this class several times a year and have training and actually complete a degree that way. They also had a real burden to reach international students, to have them there at the school. They didn't want to just reach the Philippines, but really all of Southeast Asia. And so they started praying for international students. In 2007, a man from Bangladesh came and said, "Hey, I'd like to take classes from you. I want to be trained to serve the Lord." They said, "Sure." So since then, the Lord has brought many others. So they have students from Myanmar and Bangladesh, from China. In fact, someone was sharing with me just a couple months ago of a graduate of the school in China who's starting a seminary there to do again with others what was done with him in Manila. And there's a student there this semester from Papua New Guinea, and the fruit of the ministry there. So it's just exciting to think about those people going out. But as you can imagine, with a growing ministry like that, you've got to have a building. They were largely using space in other people's buildings, churches and things that had graciously allowed them to use space, but they needed a building, but they didn't want to build a building. I mean, who wants to start a huge building project? It was daunting, kind of dragged their feet about that. And then the Lord used a older lady here in Greenville, who sent them a gift and said, "This money is for a building." And that kind of gave them the little prodding that they needed to get going on this project. And so they started the building there. And in 2019, they were able to move in. I think it was about $800,000, completely paid off. The Lord just provided that. It's just a beautiful facility, what the Lord has given them there. So they have about 150 students in each semester, about 340 degree graduates over the years. And the Lord's just done really, really amazing things there. in that. I thought I'd share just two of their graduates. This is Dr. Atan Taklab. I don't know, probably people here know him. He was at the seminary here graduated from BJMBC, came to the seminary here, did a doctorate. So he and I were in a lot of classes together, and he's a good friend. And then he's back now in Manila, and he's on the faculty there, and he's teaching and training others and passing on to them what he's been given. This is Brother Albert Tianco, again, graduate of the school there, came over to the seminary here, he got a doctorate, and now he's back pastoring and teaching there. He's the director of the ministerial studies at the school. And you think about graduates of a school like this and what the Lord can do through them. And it's amazing, it's exciting to think about that. So that's just a whirlwind tour of what the Lord's done in our lives and how we believe that He's leading us now, and the excitement that we have to follow Him and what He's doing there. We have a little table over here at the side. There's a place where you can sign up to get regular updates by email, prayer updates. There's also prayer cards there. It's the kind of thing where when you buy prayer cards, you can get like 100 for $50, or you can get 1,000 for $60, or like 1,000,000 for $80. So we went with the 1,000,000 option, not quite, but we literally have like a huge box of these things left. So take a whole lot of them and decorate your refrigerator, wallpaper your den or something, and by all means, please take them and pray. There's some little things there for the kids too, some flags, some little coloring pages they can take. But please sign up to get prayer updates, take a prayer card. Please pray for us. And that would be a blessing there. Oh, there's also little dried mango balls there as well. And I'm most excited about those. Those are for the adults too. But they are, when I left Australia, I left real mangoes behind because U.S. mangoes aren't really real. But the Philippines has real mangoes, so I'm excited about that. And the dried mango balls aren't quite as good as the real thing, but a little taste of the Philippines, so you can enjoy those. But that's just a little whirlwind tour of where we've been. We have tickets to fly out November 30th. So we have had a couple months of language school already, and working on learning Tagalog. And pray for us about that. I think there's like 4 tiers of language to learn. Tagalog's like number 3, so it's not quite as bad as like Arabic or something, but it's pretty close. So pray for us as we attempt to learn Tagalog and be able to effectively communicate. All the classes there are in English, but as soon as you step outside the classroom, Tagalog is, in churches or whatever, is really what you need. So we're working on that. But we have like 2 minutes left. I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything that would be good to clarify. Go ahead. Aberdeen, South Dakota, so the northeast part. Yeah. Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, cool. You don't meet many people from South Dakota, but that's great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. Anyone else, a quick question or something you're wondering about, or we can clarify? Okay, well, thank you. Oh, go ahead. Yes, we did. Yeah. So we raised kind of like one-time type short-term support for Canada, and that's what we're doing again for this trip, since it's kind of a once-off short-term assignment, and then we'd go on the road in real deputation and raise ongoing support if we went back long-term. Does that help? Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for having us. It's a blessing to be here, and we're looking forward to being here for the service tonight, and please come shake our hands. It's our goal to shake as many hands as possible, so help us meet that goal, and we want to meet you and say hello, and thank you again.
All right, and if you're wondering, Andrew is David's brother. I'm not sure. Who's older? David's older. All right, our missionaries that we do support in Australia. And Dr. Barry is preaching away today. I wasn't sure if any of the family would be here, but I just want you to know that they are really praying. They want the Lord's will, and they would be thrilled if it was the Lord's will to just confirm the Minnicks being there. And if you get a chance to talk to Laura about it, she'll probably barely get through that discussion. I'm serious about that. Before, she's very tender about their leaving and very desirous of the Lord filling in the spaces, and with tears when she can get it out, will say, if the Lord will put the Minnicks there to help me so much. So we have multiple reasons just to continue to to pray for the Lord's work. But Andrew will be preaching tonight, and so I'll be back for that. And do greet them. I'm going to let the choir slip out first, so you can make your way to the chapel as we all prepare for our worship service. And once they are gone, the